also names, and then we can start to see what are some of the keywords. So I'm starting to see right in the middle of this word cloud, technology, innovation seems to be very popular words. Expensive, cybersecurity, outside of your comfort zone. Interesting. So I think today my name is Manhon. I'm from UOB, and I'll be making introductions to my teammates who will be sharing with you our thoughts around digital transformation and how UOB is enabling that part of the journey for our clients. Not just clients that are users of digital, but also clients that are in the space of enabling that technology by providing that platform to help clients, and how we UOB is a part of that journey, and how we are helping our clients in that journey, right? So I hope you find this word cloud very interesting, and it is in alignment with some of your thinking around digital transformation. Hope that you hear more today about what we plan to do. Yeah. So maybe before I get started, just want to share some housekeeping rules with everyone here. And thanks again for joining us. We right now have over 60, 67, 68 participants in this Zoom as I'm looking at. So there's quite a lot of us. So you will actually be muted in this session, just to prevent too much disruptions from the audience. And also, if you have any questions throughout this session, feel free to drop a chat or a message into the chat room or chat box in the SFF platform. Then thereafter we will be able to see your questions and we will answer them there and then. Also note that we will have a Q&A session right at the end. Hopefully we have enough time for that. And we'll be there to answer some of the questions. But along the way, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop them into the chat as well. So without further ado, let me go back to my main PowerPoint slide. Right. So let me run through the agenda with you today. There will be 4 presenters from today's session. Myself, Manhon, Terence, Wei Zhe, and Xiaohan. So we will be running through the agenda, from Terence sharing first a broad overview of what DX is, and he'll explain what DX is about. And also Wei Zhe run through with you how DX had an impact on the broader tech ecosystem and broader ecosystem at large for businesses. And thereafter, Xiaohan will talk about GAAP, what GAAP means. And finally, I will sum it up by saying, by sharing with you how UOB, how FIs, especially UOB, are part of this journey in enabling DX. And as I mentioned, at the end of it, we'll have a Q&A session. So without further ado, let me bring Terence on to share with us the overview of DX.
Yeah, thanks, Manhon. Good morning, all. I think it is a pleasure for me to be able to share with you with regards to a certain perspective as we look into these mega trends on digital transformations, which is really affecting across all economies and all markets. I just a little bit of introductions about myself. I heads up the telecom media technology coverage in the wholesale banking, and within my team, really specialists that cover each of the key subsector within the TMT broader sector itself. And within these subsectors, we actually harness the convergence of telecom, media, and technologies to develop solutions that we believe that it will be able to address the pain points of corporates or enterprises, as well as stakeholders that is within the ecosystems that we focus upon, and to be able to enable them to meet some of these challenges with regards to supply chain and their business activities that will bring about value propositions that is win-win for both of us. So as a bank itself, we are key enablers in any of the ecosystems. And by being able to provide the capital and growth capital and the funding requirements to support enterprises we believe that that's how we are able to add value in such a manner. So without further ado, maybe I can just move on to these first sections, which we talk about overview of DX. DX itself is acronyms that we have used that represent digital transformation. So anything to do with DX that you saw is an acronym that we decided to use, but we also represent digital transformations as the acronyms speak of. Yeah. So in this slide itself, we all know COVID-19 pandemic has been a very big substantial effects on our life, really. Not just our work life, even at home and how we live out in our lifestyle. And COVID-19 has become a catalyst that actually stimulate further motivations towards certain changes in the behavior. Even though the prevailing environment like trade tensions that we have seen across quite a number of years right now, rising of US and China trade tensions, and the localizations as well as enabling technology that has been always been around and promoting certain form of stimulus towards certain efficiencies and effectiveness of change to allow business activities to be a lot more efficient in terms of how it's being run. Having said that, the way we look at I 4.0 that has been around for some times now, the growth has been very much more incremental from a perspective of adoptions. But with COVID-19 that happens, with full-fledged impacts that's affecting the world economy since 2020, we are seeing a tremendous increase in terms of the growth in adoptions of enabling technologies that look at digitalizations as a form, as a strategic focus or objective for corporates to carry out their business activities, to be able to overcome disruptions, to be able to exercise a lot more command and control over its own business activities and its value chains. And hence, the needs of that came about because of COVID-19 that created such a huge impact that disrupt the ability for most of us to be able to congregate in fixed locations, in the same locations, and hence the whole structure has been disseminated towards working from home, remote working, and a lot more needed to have the command and control over a wider area in order to be able to ensure that your business activities continue to carry on. So that brings about new behavioral change. And with this new behavioral changes, and we know that COVID-19's pandemic is moved towards, as what we are seeing right now, into an endemic status. The way we understand about how we have been working, how we have been connecting, in relation to face-to-face, in the way we collaborate, is starting to shift towards a new way of behavior, different behavioral styles, that because of these endemic situations, it is likely to be a permanent behavioral shift. And what we are saying is that the way we work, the way we connect, even the way we shop, as what we see, that the pandemic has actually causes tremendous growth in terms of e-commerce activities, where the consumer is starting to adopt them. And there are new e-commerce accounts that is being opened a lot more in the last 18 months than what we see in the same kind of periods previously. The way we build, the way we play, the way we learn. These are the 6 key activities that typically we do every day. And hence, there's a need to look at how this new behavioral shift is going to transform each of these activities that we typically do in our daily works. Yeah. Let's move on to the next page. So henceforth, with the current situations, we are seeing an increased demands for remote work, and all organizations are moving towards this. And because this is going to be likely to be a lot more longer term, and hence there is a need to ensure that the hybrid working model continues to stay intact. And it is likely not to be the same whereby everybody will be going back to a certain locations, a certain office setup to do our official duties under our occupations. There's going to be a need to look at a hybrid model whereby there are work functions that can be actually done remotely, will be done that way as part of long-term infrastructure of the business activities. So hence the hybrid model, and because of what we have seen in terms of work from home as the key part of working behavior and working structure, it is starting to see that how people are adopting their work from home remote working style working out for them. And on the right hand side of the slides, you'll see key benefits of remote work. And on the left hand side, you'll see there's greater demands for remote work because there is really no key impacts or material impacts with regards to productivity. There is for certain functions, not every functions of it. And there is also that, by working from home, there is also that ability to be allowing the companies to be more flexible in terms of how they look at working, rather than working as a way of coming to the office together and everybody is staying in the same locations. But to be able to recognize that even though working and not being able to see a person physically for certain function groups, and when they are working from their homes or remote area, there's still a way to enhance productivity and collaborations. And it does bring about the same kind of effect for the purpose of allowing the business activity to continue to proceed on. So hence work from home policies is being incorporated into the HR policies for most corporates today. So as we see this trend line and the way we're looking at it as a more permanent shift of behavior, there's greater demands for the enabling technology to be able to allow the business processes to move online. Maybe we can move on to the next page. And DX, digital transformations are also relevant across all sectors. And it is not about digital transformations that only relates to technology sectors or even telecom or media in terms of how media contents are being pushed out under the digital platforms. But it actually are very much applicable across all sectors, in the industry sectors, in the oil and gas sectors. And these are some of the sectors that's being tracked out based on the data that we have from the source of IDC. And you can see that logistic, mining, utilities, oil and gas manufacturing, they are all indicating that digital transformations are critical for them. It's key for them to ensure sustainability with regards to their business processes and business activities as they go forth. Yeah. So we come to this page. This page basically tried to highlight what we deem as what we have found out based on the survey by IDC, that the top 10 technology investments in 2020, and that's very much being moved by the COVID-19 pandemic, including the other factors of I4.0s, trade tensions, and they are increasing availability of enabling technologies. If you look at the left-hand side itself, the top 10 technology investments, you look across them, you'll find that most of them are focusing on establishing an infrastructures for the enterprise to be able to continue to carry on their business activities with a remote working structure. So when you talk about virtual workspaces, video conferencing, collaborative applications, secure remote access, these are all the technologies that enable workforces to be able to coming from a wider area of operations. instead of a lot more concentrated within one office or certain facilities and everybody's working there. So on the right-hand side, you see the implementations priorities of organizations, and the 41.2% has stated that they will be looking to increase in their IT technology investments, and 39.4% are looking to improve their IT visibility and remote management capabilities. So all these numbers and adoptions are being seen for the purpose of digital transformations for themselves as part of their ability to continue to support their business model. And it is also, an next towards sustainability with regards to their business continuity in that sense. So I know that today sustainability has been talked about a lot more in the ESG context. But having said that, digitalizations is really a movement and a trend that actually supports sustainability of a business and the enterprise life cycles in that sense. Maybe we can move on. Yeah, over here, we just wanted to highlight that there are 4 benefits that has already come about as enterprises get on board on the DX journey and having a roadmap to digitalize most of their business processes. So number 1, as you can see on the top left of that 4 quadrant itself, is the process improvements that actually drive efficiencies. And remote work can lead to 58% increase in productivity rates. And what we are seeing from 2 companies, 2 case studies, is that by digitalizing some of their work processes, be it e-invoicing and allowing more of the administrative works to be able to be put online, the productivities and efficiencies outcome of that is really enabling the company to enjoy the benefits of that. And as there are more efficiency in the work processes through the improvement by digitalizing those processes, they bring about increasing productivity also means lower cost. And to be able to handle multiple business, voluminous business processes through digitalizations actually allows economy of scales as well. Number 2, there are increased savings and improved revenue growth. And Centennial has basically is one of the case study that reflects how digital transformations allowed them to achieve a payback period of 9 months for the purpose of their technology investments to digitalize their business process. And we're seeing a 96% return on investments. And that's the case that they have highlighted as evidence that digitalizations has a real impact to the bottom line of a company. Number 3, flexibility to increase productivities. As you find that as you digitalize some of your work processes, you find that there are certain breakthrough in certain barriers or limitations that you faces when it is done offline. The moving of goods and how we control them, how do we make account to them, as well as it does bring about new channels, new way of carrying out your business activities in a new fashions because of digitalizations. And that flexibilities allow you to assess what is the best options and how do you go about optimizing that workflow to be able to bring about the same result in not the same kind of commitments as well as resources that's deployed that can actually bring about greater results because of digitalizations. So flexibilities to improve productivity is one of the key benefits that you can already see from digital transformations. And number 4, driving sales. And we can see right now that, even for brick and mortar companies moving into online and to digitalize some of their sales strategies to be able to build new channels and to be able to collaborate. Because of digitalization, you are able to collaborate with your stakeholders or key partners in your supply chain, your value chain a lot more better. You find that you'll be able to be in a better position to drive greater sales. So Xionggon here has shown that they are able to increase the sales by tenfold after you launch a new websites. And because of new websites, whereby once it is online platform, you'll find that you can cut across a lot of physical boundaries to be able to bring about your products to be in front of face of your target clients a lot more better. Okay, yeah, that comes to the end of my overview for DX, and hopefully that will give you a greater and a better perspective of how digital transformations is one of the key mega trends. It's not just impacted by cost factors like the COVID-19 pandemic, but because of the values and benefits that enterprise has already shown that they are able to reap from digital transformations roadmap. Both factors are likely to move towards a greater trend to push for greater growth for digital transformations adoptions. And this is where we found that this megatrend is something that we wanted to focus upon to be able to enable corporates, clients, companies that we think that we want to partner with to support their growth, to be able to allow them to enjoy this journey in a manner that can improve their productivity a lot more quicker. And we as a bank can actually support that because we are an enabler within their ecosystems to allow them to adopt some of this new technology. And in the earlier Mentimeter survey, I see technology and innovations is one of the key words that keep jumping up from all of you. And hence, we also believe that this is where our main focus will have to be in. And how do we support our clients' growth as part of our client bank's relationship strategy? So hence, we would like to continue to be available, to be there ready, and to also articulate in a way that we understand what this trend is all about. How does it benefit the enterprises? So the way we empower you is because we understand that it will benefit you, and we will be able to analyze the credit, analyze the banking solutions in a manner that will definitely be critical towards your pain points and your challenges. So I think I talked a lot already, so maybe I'll just move on to the next speaker, Weiter, who will take us through in this next section. Thanks. Weiter?
Thanks, Terence. Hi, everyone. I'm Weiter. I'm part of Terence's team, also covering the TMT sector from UOB. So my section, I'll be basically sharing about digital transformation and its impact on the ecosystem that it interacts with. So I believe many of our guests in today's workshop, you are involved in various parts of the technology stack. And we would just like to share our view on the technology stack and how this stack actually works together to drive the whole digital transformation mega trend and providing the services. So let me jump straight. So I think digital transformation looks, or it's a very simple term that we hear about. It gets thrown around a lot, right? But if you look at it, the underlying behind it, there's actually many players and many layers that is involved in delivering that end service or that end solution or the end, for us in this case, the end virtual conference that we're enjoying now, right? So for us, if you look at it, the top row in pink, that's actually what we call the digital platforms, or the various end services. So be it for retail, when we go in and we do contactless payment, for real estate when we do smart and so-called smart devices, or basically human tracking, or even the fact of the SFM measures that we have to go through now to get into a mall. For financial services, all your apps, all your interactive apps, whether it's B2B, B2C, for social media, for healthcare, for education, these are all the virtual end state or the end terminals that we see on a day-to-day basis. But behind them, we also know that there's actually a whole stack, a whole technology stack that that all these players have to rely on and work with, whether directly or indirectly, to be able to deliver the end product, right? So we talk about the supporting applications, whether it's analytics, whether is it resource management, whether is it even basically network security. These B2B products actually come into play, right? The cloud operating stack, where we put up all the operating systems, the network securities, just to allow people to have uninterrupted access on a 24/7 on the end products. These are also equally important to make sure the environment is correct, and also to allow what we call in so-called application interaction on a daily basis. So now increasingly apps don't exist by themselves. They exist with everybody in the ecosystem, right? And with that, you have to have this right cloud environment where everybody sits within and be able to interact in, for them to be able to take data or process payments from different applications, right? To make sure that the end user experience is good. Lastly, we looked at digital infrastructure. That's a term that we call in terms of all your computers, all your servers, all your data centers, all your network connectivity, the physical hard assets that are really the underlying devices that are driving this whole digital transformation. And we see that, the whole digital transformation shift, actually, when we dive through the stack, we see that everything is growing at a very fast pace. And since COVID, as what Terence has said, since the pandemic has started, we see the growth to be tremendous, right? And we actually cover quite a bit on the digital infrastructure, and we also work with some of the cloud operators, be it the regional ones or the global ones. And we do hear from them that this demand for more and more digital real estate, in this sense, or digital infrastructure, is there because everybody is moving online as a means to survive and as a means to continue surviving and working and delivering and delivering value to the economy. So we think that understanding this whole digital ecosystem and the whole technology stack that you see here is very important. And we also can see that the impact of digital transformation has caused certain, how I say, first thing we see is actually there's a label shift, right? So we see a lot of talents required in the operating system side, in the cloud side, where people are actually finding more engineers, people are looking for more coders, more software engineers to come and build the necessary environments to support the end use, right? We also see trends such as hardware supply chain shortage, right? With the whole digital infrastructure, with the whole end device. So with IoT coming in, with more and more products getting smarter, we see that there's a chip shortage. We see that there's a supply chain shortage, and all this actually, if you look at the root cause, is actually stemming from this global mega trend of digital transformation. So we see that literally the whole ecosystem is very positively impacted, and a lot of the players in this whole ecosystem prior to the pandemic, they have been working very hard to justify why people should go digital. But with the pandemic coming in, it's like literally they have this shift, and we think that this shift towards digital has impacted them very positively, and this shift being more and more permanent as we go along would transform a lot of these players, transform how they interact, transform how they do business, and bring And literally, as we transform the consumer behavior, all these players would become more and more important. Okay, but when we talk about all this, it seems like there's so many things to cover, and there's so many things for any corporates or any enterprise that's looking to go into digital transformation, right? But what's the main thing we think that it should be the main focus of any strategy, right? Next slide. I think what we from our understanding of this whole mega trend, right? We understand that the focus of digital transformation should, in many cases, be about services, right? It's about selling the service. It's about the user experience, right? We are not selling a product. So gone are the days where we just sell a laptop and, guys, you just have to sort it out. And now we're talking about selling end solution, an end service to sort of bridge the need and bridge the gap, right? So this is a key thing, and selling this whole user transformation, user experience involves looking at selling services, being part of the ecosystem, and also having the right data connectivity strategy so that when you are bridging that digital transformation gap for your organization or for your clients' organizations or for your clients' organization, it gives them that seamless experience to plug in, to get into the right ecosystem and to bring their value to the ecosystem or to the end consumer group, right? And therefore, it's not about just I'm selling you hardware, I'm selling you connectivity. No, it has to be a package, right? So what this means is that as we distill down, a key component of this whole digital transformation and its ecosystem increasingly is what we call our digital enablers or IT enablers. Next slide, please. Yep. So we feel that IT enablers are increasingly key to supporting the key players expanding in the region and for the growth of digital transformation as a whole, right? We do see growth, and IT enablers come in many shapes and form, right? We have the software players, we have the cloud players, we have the smaller boys, which are basically our IT service providers doing all the system integration and enabling work. But this group of players, they are enabling this trend, and they're enabling customers to come on this trend. And this, we as a bank believe that they are very key because they are increasingly being called to bridge the hardware with the solutions, the hardware with the services. And they are the guys that increasingly are providing that end service or the end experience for a lot of the corporates to get onto this mega trend. So as a whole, as a FI, we feel that these guys are key to this mega trend, and we are looking at how we can further support these guys. An example would be, I think there is an emergence of as a service model. It has been growing for quite a few years, I think about for the past 5 to 10 years. And what we see now is that increasingly IT enablers are being called to provide more and more as a service solutions, right? So initially it was software as a service, then it was what we call infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. Now we look at device as a service. Now we even look at more complicated bundles and how people can provide that as a service, the software and the hardware together as a service, right? So we understand that IT enablers, these guys are increasingly playing that intermediate role to bridge. And we as a bank believe that we want to focus on them, and we think that we can also provide some sort of enabling sort of partnership when we look at them, right? On the as a service, I think I'll pass. It will be in our next section. My colleague Xiao Han will talk more about it. So maybe I can pass on the session to her on the growth of as a service model. Xiao Han.
Thank you, Waiter, for bringing us through DX and its impact on the ecosystem, as well as the importance of IT enablers. So for my section, I'll be talking about the importance of as a service model in my section. So if we look at the first slide, we'll see how cloud continues to be a key focus of many of these enterprises. So for the chart on the left, what it shows is that the comparison between 2019 to 2020, how organizations, for example, in 2019, only about 31% of those in spare parts management plan to move in the cloud within the next 12 months, but this soon doubled in 2020. So you can see how between 2019 and 2020, basically between the light blue and the dark blue, how it has doubled and how cloud continues to be a huge focus of enterprises. And if we look at the part on the right, which aspects of the cloud are important. Top three importance are enterprise resource management applications, customer relationship management applications, and IoT. So why is it that these aspects of the cloud are becoming more important this year? And the need for the first one, ERP, is because ERP is designed to streamline and integrate many of the business processes and functions that have been affected by the pandemic. And with this ERP software, enterprises can actually use it to actually match things like their production levels with the available stocks and sales to be able to match that. And of course, one key benefit is the low upfront cost of cloud-based ERP that is helping to drive adoption across organizations, especially for SMEs that have limited IT budget and resources. And of course, the second one, which would be customer relationship management applications, or what we know as CRM. And with more employees working remotely during COVID-19, unable to facilitate travel and meetings during COVID-19, CRM can actually help companies and encourage more contact to allow companies to maintain engagement and communication, especially for targeted segments. So companies can easily use through the cloud using CRM, they can use dashboards to actually track customers who they have been out of touch with and act accordingly. And of course, lastly would be that of the IoT device management platforms, whereby companies can actually use that to actually track the various sensors and detect that automatically in the offices. So if we look at you look at the intentions just now on companies intending to get onto the cloud, we look at the benefits of the cloud. So for this slide, we look at what is actually the actual outcome of it. So this was actually a survey done by UOB on the SMEs this year. So you can see that what is the impact of those SMEs who have actually adopted digitalization. So you can see from the left that 40% of those who have adopted digitalization have seen higher productivity or efficiency. And so on. You can look at the various different benefits here. And if you look at the chart on the right, we can see that 71% of them have actually stated that their profitability have actually increased or improved between 10 to 30%. So from that, you can see this shows what is the actual productivity, what is the actual cost benefit that companies have seen. So with all these benefits of DX, what then is the easiest way for companies to get onto digital transformation? What is the most efficient way for them to afford it? So for a lot of these companies, the best way that they can actually afford it, for them not to actually pay that much upfront for the hardware, would be through infrastructure as a service. So for cloud services, such as infrastructure as a service, as we move on to the next slide, we can see that it allows companies, IaaS, it allows companies to actually subscribe to an entire IT infrastructure without having companies needing to actually procure the hardware. This means that companies can actually add or remove servers from the infrastructure based on their current business needs, and companies can also scale efficiently, and they can opt for any software or custom app as and when they need. And of course, one of the key benefits would be that of cost effectiveness, and of course that of business scaling. So an example of IaaS would be that of AWS. So we can see that with all this demand and growth in digital transformation, that we expect good growth. We can see that a positive CAGR is expected, 28% is expected, a growth between 2020 and 2025, as we see all this demand from all these companies as they need to adopt IaaS, how it's important to a lot of this digital enterprises for them to actually get onto this important infrastructure resources. And of course, at the back of IaaS would be that of also software as a service. So cloud solutions such as software as a service can also allow companies to use an app available on any device in your company. Example would be, everyone will be familiar with Office 365. That would be an example of SaaS, where companies can leverage the latest software solutions, and you can just pay for these apps as and when you need to use. So secondly, a key benefit, of course, would be that of lower cost, better use of CapEx, and companies can just subscribe to SaaS as and when they need. And with that, of course, we expect good growth in SaaS because digital transformation, SaaS will be key for that of digital transformation. And lastly, we look at device as a service. It's also expected to grow because it allows more flexibility for employees. And for now, to note that it's currently only more pronounced in the PC market. It's more commonly used by companies for PCs compared to smartphones and tablets. So device as a service is also a key as a service model that will be crucial for companies to grow in their cloud services along with infrastructure as a service as well as software as a service. So with that, I'll pass on the time to Manhon, who will be sharing about how FIs can enable DX.
Hi everyone, I'm back again. But before we get into the proper, where how UOB can be part of that journey in digital transformation that my teammates have previously shared. Again, let's get on to a quick poll on Menti. I appreciate if you could take out your devices again to either scan the QR code or use the website, using the code to log in, and let's do a poll, and maybe we can get some perspectives on what you think, are important areas. Let me just do a quick login. Okay, so I did a poll online and asking how can FIs best support companies in digital transformation. And you just want to see, is it in the area of providing funding support, introducing partners, or enhancing digital integration? Notice that we only give you one option, so probably this will be what you think FI has the best right to win or play in supporting companies in digital transformation. And so let's see. I'll probably give a couple of minutes to the team because I kind of locked off and back in. Okay. Can the admin help to mute some of the participants that are not speaking, please? Thanks. Okay, let's get back to the presentation proper again. Okay, we've a lot of us have voted that funding support remains one of the areas, and so let me share with you how FIs are enabling DX in this whole journey that my teammates have spoken a lot about in the whole landscape. That this is a mega trend that's happening, not just to specific sectors or industries, but or size of companies. It actually happens to everyone, and everyone is part of this, and the COVID COVID-19 environment has actually accelerated this whole digital transformation. But before I start, let me just talk about a deep dive on our perspective on how IT service providers look about their business model, and how we as a bank look at their business model, specifically looking at their cash flows, right? So on the left, we believe largely ITSPs, which I'll call them in short, have two major streams of cash flows. One on the left-hand side, which are what we would term as steady cash flows. So very often these are cash flows that are relating to maintenance-related processes or BPO services that they provide to their clients. And typically these are very long-term and very recurring in its nature, whereby the collections or the service level agreements are long-standing, and there's very little what we would term as performance risk. So these are what we call the stable cash flows that we see in a lot of IT, in some of these IT service providers' business model. There's another form which is more milestone-based. So you're starting to see a lot of implementation related projects that are project-oriented. So that's where they are all based on performance milestones, whereby payments or cash flows will be forthcoming, subject to certain performance or milestones that's satisfactory between the supplier and the buyer, the customer. So this has an element of a performance risk, as clearly it is subject to certain milestones being performed and achieved, and thereafter the payments will be dispersed. So this is one thing that we want to kind of set the stage, that we need to, as a FI, right, we look at these two areas of cash flows. At the same time, we also look at what are the pain points of these ITSPs. What do they, what are some of the areas, especially from a financial management perspective, what are some of the pain points that they often encounter? And this is how we try to understand their pain points. Looking at on the left-hand side, we summarize them into 5 key pain points, right? Looking at first things first, often there is a mismatch between their working capital cycle, between the collections and the payment obligations that they have to make to their supplier, to their own sub-suppliers or subcontractors. There is typically a mismatch in timing. And this is especially for milestone projects, whereby they are first have to deliver something, i.e. they have to buy something, they have to make good some of the services or projects in place before they receive the payment, right? So that is one. Secondly, something quite common, especially in countries in the regional markets we operate in Southeast Asia, there is a tendency for certain delay in payments, especially from enterprise customers. So, and this actually causes even greater pain in the working capital mismatch, in the pain point, as I mentioned earlier. At the same time, and this is quite prevalent as a business practice in certain markets here as well. At the same time, given the asset-like business model of a lot of IT companies, right? They tend to have greater difficulty in getting bank-related financing because they don't really have much security or much assets that they could put forth as a basis for borrowing, right? So that's what's one area. And thirdly, even if they can find other options, right, they tend to be a bit more expensive because they are closer to kind of equity like structures, and hence they are a lot more expensive. And last but not the least is that they have this common pain point that I have a 10-year contract, right? And it's with a very good customer. For example, it could be a very large MNC, that I provide a maintenance or BPO project. However, they are still unable to monetize this cash flow, this future cash flow that can be used for further growth or further customer acquisition or further investment into their platform. So these are some of the pain points that we found. And on the right-hand side, this is a chart that we kind of map out, a typical payment flow and its associated payment terms to kind of illustrate the pain points where it exists, a lot in the IT service providers' pain points, together with this collection pain point from this enterprise customer. The third perspective I wanted to share with you, aside from understanding their cash flows and understanding their pain points, is really how do we look at a project life cycle. And that will allow me to be able to dovetail into, as what most of us have felt that we can, as FIs can support DX is really in the area of financing. and providing credit support. So if you look at through the life of a contract, right, we break them down into typically two forms of contract. One of them short-term contracts, the other kind long-term contracts, right, at the bottom. Let me run through the short-term contracts first. Broadly speaking, there are about maybe 5 key milestones that we look at in a project, in a DX project. First, winning and being awarded the tender, and then buying, procuring the equipment, both software and hardware, as what Xiao Han has mentioned on software, device, infrastructure, all of this equipment, and then installing them, and thereafter post-installation, with acceptance from the client, whereby the invoicing will happen, and thereafter the payment from customers. So if you can see from throughout the entire project lifecycle, I think UOB, we do have a suite of solutions across all areas of the lifecycle to support clients, and we have listed 3 examples. Even at the point of awarding and winning the contract, we are able to provide support for some of the performance-related guarantee facilities that you need. At the same time, throughout, the buying installation process, we are able to also provide funding support, for clients through this journey, as well as after the invoice has been issued, that's where we can provide some invoice-related or receivables-related financing facilities across the life cycle as well. So that way, we can use, for example, product solution C, to repay funding for other facilities that you have used on other projects to do procurement of equipment and funding for labor costs as well. So in a short-term contract, we do have a full suite of solutions that, and we have a very good understanding on the project life cycle of companies to be able to support your needs across both either as a supplier of such solutions or a consumer or a buyer of such solutions. Looking down at the long-term contracts, we do have this facility called the hire purchase line, a hire purchase facility that can allow some of these IT service providers purchase or procure equipment, whereby, you need to make some CapEx upfront, right, to purchase this equipment. But your business model will be subject to a longer term nature of recurring income. So that's where we can support you to drive some of these purchase or CapEx requirements that you need. We have summarized, broadly speaking, how we can help you into what we call a DX financing framework across different tiers, right? Firstly, on what we call a basic tier for companies whereby you're up to a certain size, where we're looking at potentially about 50 million size of a turnover for your company, whereby we can support you, as we mentioned, on receivables financing and also any banker's guarantee or performance guarantee requirements for your contracts. At the same time, we have a DX Plus, whereby we avail this to companies that have a bigger and a larger setup. We will be able to offer you what basic can offer, plus all of your CapEx needs relating to your equipment purchase, whereby we could look to incorporate a hire purchase facility for you. Above all, right, in a drive towards ESG and sustainability, right, we do have an enhancement to the DX product, which is the DX Green enhancement to both the basic and the DX Plus packages, looking to really drive and be part of the ESG agenda in helping clients to adopt green solutions. And so we have that as a label that can help to enhance the overall value proposition on basic and DX Plus as well. And with that, I will just do a quick roundup, that we have had some experience, UOB as bank, in helping clients to go through their DS journey. And in this SFF session today, we just want to share 3 clients that we have done. For first client, whereby we help them support their purchase of some IT storage equipment for their agency. And so that's really kind of a financing against their receivables. Yeah. And likewise, we have done it with another network operator on contract financing solution as well. And also for HP lines, for a client to purchase this, to make CapEx equipment purchase relating to network equipment in this instance, whereby they lease it to a telco to get that long-term contracts with a recurring income. So basically, we help them to do the upfront, support them in the upfront investment for their business as well. So I think overall, we have quite a fair bit of experience in working with IT service providers or clients who are undergoing digital transformation in their journey, and we want to be a part of that partner to help to alleviate some of the financial pain points associated with going on this digital transformation journey. With that, I think the team has kind of round up our presentation. We just want to see if there's any Q&A we have. Is there any Q&A in the chat box? Doesn't seem like it. And if there's anyone that has a question, feel free to raise your hands. We are right down to the close of our timing. We have about 2 minutes left. Feel free to drop any message you have or raise your hand and unmute yourself if you have a question. Otherwise, we want to thank you for your participation, especially in both the mentee sessions for the word cloud as well as the poll session. We hope that you learned something, you found something of value in our session today, and we look forward to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop us a note. Reach out to the organizers, the UOB organizers for the Singapore Fintech Festival, and we are happy to get in touch to see how we can support and work with you as a partner in this digital transformation journey. So thank you very much. I guess there are no questions for this session. Thank you very much once again. We hope you have a nice day and a nice week ahead in the Singapore Fintech Festival, and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.